So my group is talking about tattoos. We pick tattoos because the majority of the group has them. The majority of people here have them, actually. I'm one of the few that don't. But I do like art, and I'm a big fan of art, and tattoo artists are some of the most creative and talented artists there are. So today we're going to cover some of the history of tattoos, the stigma of having tattoos, different forms of modern tattoos, the machine progression, which is the tattoo gun, health risks that are associated with tattooing, crazy stories, and hilariously horrible mistakes, and tattoos in the workplace and discrimination with people against tattoos. So tattoo, what is it? It comes from the Tahitian word tatau, which is first known to be used in 1769 by Captain James Cook. And it's defined as a mark or figure fixed upon the body by insertion of a pigment under the skin or by production of scars. So it may not just be ink, it could be scars as well. And it's a form of art that you can take with you and show it off. So tattoos are more prevalent and accepted more than they ever have been in today's time. A Harris poll in 2013 said 36% of 18 to 25-year-olds have at least one tattoo, and 40% of 26 to 40-year-olds have at least one as well. So some of the oldest known tattoos are on some of the mummies that we found on mountains and mummified in Egypt and stuff. So the oldest one that is found is Otzi the Iceman, and he had 57 tattoos all over his entire body. He lived about 3,300 years ago, and was found in 1991 by some hikers in Italy, about 10,000 feet up. And most of his tattoos are associated with pain management. So they find them a lot on the spine, a lot on the joints, a lot near the knees and elbows, and they think it has something to do with acupuncture, which is a little bit older than what they thought it used to be. So in ancient Siberia, about 2,500 years ago, the Pazriks, it was a nomadic clan, were found with very similar markings on the back. There were circles also denoting maybe pain management, and they used these tattoos as a form of ID. Then we jump to ancient China, where this is actually a mark that prisoners would have tattooed on them, so they would denote prisoners maybe running around in outside society. And slaves also used tattoos for identification and to show who owned them, a lot like branding a cow would be nowadays. So this is Yu Fei, and he's an old Chinese folklore. And on his back, his mother, right before he went into service in the army, it says, "Repay the country with pure loyalty." He was thought to be a traitor, and he got that to prove that he wasn't. He would lay his life down for his country. So in ancient Egypt, a lot of the dug-up mummies were found with tattoos. You can see there, one mummy even actually had a tattoo of Michael the Archangel tattooed on her thigh, and that was from about 700 AD, so about 1,500 years ago. Some of them go back to 2000 BC, which is 4,000 years ago, and they denoted royalty and useful identification as well. So we jump to the islands. In islands of Samoa, this is the Pea, which is the male tattoo. This is a pretty intense tattoo. It goes all the way from about your chest to your knees, and it's done over a period of weeks to years. And it's used to denote courage in males because it's a long and extremely painful process. They use bone combs, sticks, and tortoise shells. So these are actually bones that they've chiseled out, and they'll take a stick with some ink and knock it in. And that, if you think of doing that for a year, it's fun. So the Maori tribe in New Zealand actually has a similar thing, but they use it on their face. And it's called the tomoko. And they use very similar instruments. However, this is actually carved into the skin instead of punctured. So it actually leaves grooves almost like a record would. It's pretty intense. So in ancient Taiwan, the Atayal tribe actually did facial tattoos. They were a headhunter tribe, And for the women to be able to get tattoos, they had to be accomplished weavers and farmers to receive them. And then men, once they reached adulthood, they got one on their forehead. And then when they had children, they actually got a lower chin tattoo as well. So then some of the African tribes actually used ink as well, like the Fulani tribe used ink. Some of the other tribes actually used what's called scarification, where they would cut it and then rub soot inside, so it would kind of leave the same impression as an ink. And they were used to denote which tribe they belonged to. And men, women, and children all had them. So you can even see they're done as young as almost newborn sometimes. So I think those are pretty awesome. So finally, getting into the Western world, Great Britain, the first man to discover them was James Cook, where he ran into the Maori tribe in New Zealand and in Tahiti. He was the first man to coin the term tattoo, the word tattoo. And actually one of his aristocrats, Joseph Banks, came back to England with a tattoo. And then we jump to the United States a little while later. Sailors used to ID them, so British troops wouldn't try to capture them and force them to work on their ships, which I didn't know was a thing. So they were kind of nicknamed protection papers, because what would happen is the sailors would hand over the papers to the British and they would rip them up like they didn't exist, and then capture them anyway. So this way, they wouldn't be able to do that. And it was also used to ID their body if it was lost at sea. Pretty morbid. Around the turn of the century, a few of the outcasts used tattoos for personal expression. So this is when we began to see tattoos being used not as a tool, but more as a form of expression, more towards the body archetype things. So now we're going to talk about social stigma. Between 1800 to 1900, usually people with tattoos in the United States were mostly associated with circus people. You may have heard of the Amazing Tattooed Lady. From 1900 to 1950, used by sailors and military servicemen. Not exclusively, but the majority of them. And then from 1950 to 65, they're associated with outlaw bikers and social outcasts, or the beatnik group. And then from 65 to 95, the prison and gang era. That's when your Compton and Thug Life tattoos would start to come about. Then from 1995 to present, this is where the modern era of tattooing is, where social stigmas aren't prevalent as they used to be. So you can see here some of the circus people. Some of these run all the way from 1850 and 1840. And then here's some of the early prison tattoos. This one being my favorite. So some of the social issues. Even today, always explaining tattoos to somebody may be tiresome, and it will lead to some people who have tattoos to start to cover it up so they don't have to constantly explain something, maybe if they're just running to a grocery store. Especially if that tattoo may not have a specific meaning, if they just got it for, say, just because it looked cool, or because maybe they were drunk on a Friday night when I got one. And then the more tattoos an individual has, the more stigma they may actually feel. So now, cover your ears, kids. Here's a little video from one of my favorite comedians, Russell Peters, and he kind of talks about the social stigma of tattoos.
When I was a kid, you used to be able to look at somebody and you could tell by what their tattoo was and where it was, what kind of person they were. Like if you saw somebody with a neck tattoo, you were like, that's a crazy son of a bitch right there. And they'd always have something crazy on their neck, FTW, fuck the world. And then they'd have a teardrop tattoo, you know? What's a teardrop for? I killed a motherfucker. And I couldn't cry my own tears. Don't you quit on me. Now it doesn't matter where the tattoo is or what it is. You got these little emo kids with skinny jeans and life is difficult tattooed on their neck. Real tears running down his face. Why are you crying? People get crazy. They do the sleeve now. What did you? I got a sleeve. I did my whole arm. That's cool right now. in 10 years you're going to regret it. It's like having an Ed Hardy shirt on for the rest of your life.
So, getting past all of the ancient tattoos, made with bones and like maybe with sharpened bamboo sticks, a few types of modern tattoos. There's both color and black. Color usually involves having a whole bunch of different needles to avoid, mixing up the inks and having the colors go off. Whereas black and white tattoos, they only use one needle just over and over, and they create different types of shading with based on where the ink points are spread out. Both of them will need retouching after a few years, but black will need less retouching than color, because color fades more quickly and it'll start to dissolve into the skin a little bit or start to match the skin tone. So the majority of people I know prefer black because it's cheaper, there's less ink being used, and they don't have to retouch it as often. There is a new type of ink out called Infinitink, which by the name it sounds like it's supposed to last forever, but it's actually the opposite of that. Instead of being made with normal ink, Infinitink is actually a bunch of little plastic, like inert balls, like probably microscopic size, and those get punctured in place of ink. And it'll still come up looking like a tattoo, just like the one on the top picture, but when it comes to tattoo removal, when the laser hits those little balls, they'll explode and dissolve into the body, where it can be just like washed away with the blood or with any kind of sweat. There's also ultraviolet tattoos, most commonly called neon. They're made with a special kind of ink that actually glows under UV light, or like black lights, or like the ones they have at the bowling alley or something. They can be you can choose to make them invisible in regular light, and then when a black light comes on, the design will show up. Or you could get some color to go over it so that it's not completely secret or invisible. Some common tattoo styles. There's criminal tattoos to signify, if you're with a gang or something, you can get, maybe something on your knuckles to identify yourself in that gang. But that's different from prison tattoos, where they actually get the tattoos while they're in prison. And because there's no professional equipment in prison, they often share and reuse needles and just like manually puncture it under the skin, which is very unhealthy and leads to a lot of infection. Nazi tattoos for identifying people in Holocaust camps. Those are very common. Those were also done manually. And cosmetic hair tattoos for balding. If a guy wants to make it appear as if he just has a shaved hairstyle, he can just ask a tattoo artist to tattoo like individual little strands of hair onto his head. Some other ones are temporary, which instead of going, under the skin and puncturing through the skin, it is just a design on top of the skin. Like this one I drew with Sharpie earlier today. There's also henna, which is made from the henna plant. You can make a paste out of the leaves and draw it on, like on the ankle. You can see the texture and the 3D-ness, and then once you peel it off, it'll stain the skin red for maybe like a week or two, depending on how long you leave the paste on. Other types of body modification, as Joe mentioned before, there's scarification, which is literally just cutting some designs into the skin, and then when it'll heal, you'll get like an impression of a scar that's in a certain shape. But there were mentioned that there were tribes that rubbed soot or ink or anything into the open wound, so when the skin healed over, the skin actually healed back as a different color. There's also burning and branding. It's almost the same thing as a scar. It's most common with cattle. Usually humans don't, hold a hot iron up to their arm. Um,
Probably over the last maybe 4 years or so, it's started to get a lot more popular. I've been writing and started taking that probably about maybe 9 years, 8 years. And also started doing it with popularity, started writing to get 2 or 3 clients in a year, whereas now I'm doing anywhere from like 2 to 3 clients a month, if not more than that sometimes. Some people get things done due to market certain points in their life and that sort of thing. Other people get done because it's different to what the main people are doing. And I mean, all in all, though, I mean, people are doing these things because they actually like the end result of, you know, like natural artwork and without very art the way the electrophoresis works is it vaporizes tissue, so basically you're cutting and cauterizing at the same time, so you're not getting any bleeding or anything like that. Once you've actually passed over and done that line, it stops hurting immediately and you do it off and even though there's surface mobility and that sort of thing. Everyone's pain tolerance is different. I mean, I had a piece done on my back which was about 45 minutes worth of work. I found it an almost excruciating thing. I've got other clients that say it's very comparable to tattooing.
Okay, so moving on to a topic a little less gory than scarification and branding. One of the newer additions to the tattoo industry is cosmetic and permanent makeup, which is a form of tattooing that a lot of women and some men are using now to save themselves time, like when they're getting ready, and just to enhance overall. These are a couple before and after pictures. As you can see, it makes a pretty significant difference. A lot of people use cosmetic makeup or cosmetic tattooing for their eyebrows. It's like the most common of all the cosmetic tattooing. There is a slight difference though between regular tattooing, like inking the rest of your body, and inking your face. For cosmetic tattooing, they only penetrate the first level of skin. So they say that it's permanent, but usually depending on the person and how often they wash that part of their face and their skin regeneration and all that, it usually will last between 3 and 5 years. That's what most places will quote you. It is fairly expensive as well. Treatments usually at the bottom line pricing starting around $300 to $400 just for one form of cosmetic tattooing. So it is very pricey. There is a really cool new thing that they're doing with the cosmetic tattooing with scar and burn trauma on people. They can actually tattoo pigments over the scars and make it look more normal, like your original skin used to. And a lot of people have successfully, transformed their scars either on their faces or other parts of their body to just make it look, how they used to. And it's improving people's self-esteem and overall quality of life, being able to have that done. So that's really cool. And this is just a quick video to show like how they do
So
it.
today we are at LG&D Salon where Linda is performing a procedure, permanent makeup procedure. Linda, what do you call this procedure?
This is eyeliner retouch.
So you initially did her
Shack, Patty.
And they numb the skin while they're doing this.
Had her
So it
initial
doesn't hurt as bad as it might.
application 3 years ago. She
And-
comes in for a retouch every like year and a half to 2 years,
Like
just to keep it fresh.
a pretty happy customer.
Tears though, right? Yes.
Sweet. So
Right. Now we're going to talk about the tattoo machine gun progression over the years. So you have 2 types of tattoo guns. You have an electromagnetic coil, and you have rotary tattoo guns. As you can see right here, this 1891 version was based off of Thomas Edison's engraving pen. As you can see over time, they progressed with adding 2 coils instead of 1. And this is the 1929 tattoo gun. This is the most modern, like modern tattoo guns. This is what your artist will use. And they came up with this one right here in 1979, but it was like, way too heavy for like, the artist on their hand. So the most modern is the 1929 one. Here, this is a picture of it. And these are usually made, you use them for the detail in your tattoo, like the detail work in your tattoo. And right here, the air driven, this is like the least painful tattoo gun that you can get if you want a tattoo. It's the least painful if you use an air driven tattoo gun. And here's just a picture of what a rotary tattoo gun looks like.
Hi, my name is Chris 51. I specialize in what I like to call hyper-realism tattooing.
And my name is Joshua South. I'm the head instructor here at Area 51 in Springfield, Oregon. To find out more information, visit 851pats.com.
Let's talk tattoos.
Hi, I'm Joshua South, and I'm here to talk to you about how a tattoo machine works. The way a tattoo machine works is basically pretty simple. Energy flows into two coils, and they become magnetic. This magnetism attracts a piece of metal called an armature bar. Attached to the armature bar is a group of needles. The armature bar moves back and forth anywhere from 1.5 millimeters to 3.5 millimeters. The needle points are dipped into pigment and then injected into the skin at a rate of 2,000 to 3,000 times per minute. There are a few different types of tattoo machines. There's a rotary tattoo machine, an electromagnetic tattoo machine, and a pneumatic tattoo machine. An electromagnetic tattoo machine is driven by magnetism. A rotary tattoo machine is gear-driven, and pneumatic tattoo machines are driven by air pressure. I personally use rotary tattoo machines for coloring and electromagnetic tattoo machines for lining and shading.
Now let's talk about a few famous artists. Don Ed Hardy, most of you know him for his clothing line, Ed Hardy, but in fact he was a tattoo artist and he was really good. And he was so good in fact that in 1982 he published a 5-book series called Tattoo Time. Another famous artist is Norman Sailor Jerry Collins. He's most famous for his tattooing of sailors, boats, anchors, and women, as you can see right here. Another famous tattoo artist is Triggs. He was shot and killed, unfortunately, but he was one of the most famous LA tattoo artists in LA. And he did Chris Brown and many other music industries. And he was also a member of an exclusive group called the Seventh Letter. And we have George Burchett Davis. He is the most famous tattoo artist of all time. He's the most famous for all his designs, and at age 13 he joined the Navy, and then when he finished the Navy he landed in England and he started learning tattooing. And his types of tattoos, it's always different because he likes to include all like the cultures of that, all the different cultures of tattoos that he's seen like when he was during the Navy. So he's called the king of all the tattooists. And typical prices for tattoos. Well, a tattoo artist, their salary ranges from $14,000 to about $52,000, and the median salary is about $32,000. And how much does a tattoo cost? The rates are $80 to $100 per hour, but that's just a session. It all depends on what tattoo artist you go to or what shop you go to. And so now some health risks about tattoos. You can have allergies, which is you got like a rash around your tattoo. You can have infections, and you can have some infections which will cause redness, swelling, and pus-like drainage around the tattoo area. You can also have other skin problems called granulomas, which are, it's like a little bump that your body forms, like a little bump around a tattoo when your body sees a foreign matter on your skin, and your body forms a granuloma, which can also lead to a keloid, which is raised tissue scar, and you have a big lump of tissue that's a scar. And painful places, everyone's pain tolerance is different, and these are just common spots on the body that is very painful to get a tattoo, such as the head, you can have your throat, the inner arm, your elbow, your wrist, your hands, your knees. And here's just a little video.
Are you seriously going to deface your body just on the possibility you could achieve sex with a strange girl you met in a bar?
Yeah.
What is your mother going to say?
She's not gonna see it. Takes my temperature orally now.
What are you gonna get, Howard?
Well, I can't really decide between a screaming devil, this mean little skull, or Kermit the Frog.
Kermit the Frog?
You know, hi, oh, I'm on Howard's butt.
Get the mean little skull, and I'll see if I can make him smile.
Yeah, I'd like the mean little skull, please.
What are you gonna get, Raj?
With my luck, hepatitis.
Okay, here we go. That's just rubbing alcohol. I know, but it was cold. I'll put on the stencil. What comes after the stencil? This.
Okay, so moving on. Unfortunately, like a lot of other fun and awesome things in this world, people can get addicted to tattoos, just like they can get addicted to gambling, drinking, and drugs, and things like that. I'll also go over a couple world records, which are really interesting and kind of cool, and then lack of proofreading, which are the funny mistakes. So those are good for the end. So with tattoo addiction, when you get a tattoo, your body releases a lot of endorphins, and it's like a rush. It's an endorphin rush, serotonin, all that stuff. And people get addicted to that adrenaline that they, are feeling while they're getting their tattoo done. And a lot of times that triggers it, especially if people already have addictive personalities or are prone to it. It'll trigger them to want to keep coming back for more. So that's something that you have to be wary of in, the tattoo world. This guy right here with the half black and white face. He actually was diagnosed with OCD, and when he got his first tattoo, his OCD kicked in, and he didn't like seeing any blank spaces, so he felt like he had to keep getting ink to cover up those spaces. And so that's someone who is already prone to like an addictive and obsessive personality. So there's that. And these are a couple other people that clearly have tattoo addictions and or self-esteem issues, but interesting things. So world records, these are super cool. This guy, Lucky Diamond Rich, he has every single square inch of his body covered, including his gums. And even though his tongue doesn't look like it's covered in ink, it actually has ink on it. He spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, over 1,000 hours of work that it took to cover his whole body from head to toe. So, world record number 1. Guinness Rishi has a world record of 366 flag tattoos on him. We aren't sure as to why he chose flags. Maybe he wants to be cultured, we're not sure, but he holds the record currently for the most flags tattooed on him. Hollis Cantrell, he set the world record for the most tattoos done in 24 hours. 801 AZs, all the same tattoo, even though they were done over and over. So he did 801 of them in 24 hours, and this man sat there for that long, which is crazy. Lee Weir has the world record for 41 different Homer Simpson tattoos on his arm. He made an entire Homer Simpson sleeve. I'm not sure if that's a tattoo addiction, if that would be classified as one, or just hilarious, I'm not sure. So these are a couple examples of people who don't check their stencil when their tattoo artist stencils them, and you can come up with things like believe in myself, but the believe doesn't, it's missing the E, or tomorrow never knows. I don't think he even put the line over the T. So there's like and prom queen instead of prom queen. People are crazy. And we have this video.
So, what exactly do you do for a living? Mom!
I work for A&J Amusements. I'm rocking that monkey maze, you know what I'm saying?
What the hell is the monkey maze?
Oh, it's like a terrifying death trap, but for little kids.
Hey, those are cool tats, man.
Oh, for real, thank you, bro. You see the cobra?
What is this one? What is the one right there?
Oh, this? That's my credo. No regrets.
I like it. You have no regrets? No. Like not even a single letter?
Not me.
I love him. I think he's great. I think he's a real winner, Casey. If I were you, I would use protection.
You can see them, those are pretty funny. So, lesson learned, if you go to get a tattoo, make sure you double check. There are a few still, social stigmas still going on in today's world. If you see somebody with a full sleeve tattoo, you may think he's a tough guy. Let's go test him if you're at a bar and see what he's made of. That girl's probably easy. I don't think like that, but he'll never get a good job with that ink. That dude must be in a gang, and I wouldn't trust my kids to be around her. So, tattoo discrimination in employment is a pretty big thing nowadays. Tattoos in the workplace are pretty common now, but you may have a 31% lower chance of landing a good job if you have a visible tattoo. That's second only to piercings, which is about 39%. And then an HR director of a Fortune 500 company says, it's not going to get you fired, but you may not even land the job in the first place. So here's a few things here. If you wanted to get a job, you shouldn't have gotten that face tattoo. Or thank you for the application, but we're not hiring right now. It says when it's time to party, we will always party hard. However, whenever you see somebody with tattoos, you shouldn't discriminate because this fellow here is a surgeon, and he's got full sleeve tattoos, and this guy is a staff sergeant in the Army, and he's got a full tattoo set as well. So, to conclude, we went through the tattoos over time, social stigma for tattoos, types of tattoos, the tattoo machine history, health problems associated with them, world records, and tattoos in today's workplace. So, thank you all.